You are surrounded by people wearing masks, right now, today. The colleague who smiled at you this morning, the friend who asked how you're doing, the partner who said the right words at the right time. They are performing, and some of them are performing something you are not yet trained to detect. You have felt it before, haven't you? That cold, sinking moment after the betrayal, when you replayed every conversation in your mind and realized the signals were there the entire time. The inconsistencies, the micro moments where their face didn't match their words. The small cruelties you excused. You saw it all. You just didn't have the language to read it. You trusted the script being spoken to you, and you ignored the script being written underneath. And it cost you years. It cost you energy you will never recover. It cost you a piece of your capacity to trust. But here is the truth. No one in your life had the courage to tell you. You were never naive. You were untrained. There is a difference. And Carl Jung discovered the precise psychological law that, once you understand it, makes deception almost impossible to commit against you. The human unconscious cannot keep a secret. It leaks constantly, through every word, every gesture, every accusation, every compliment. Today you learn to decode it. Sit with that, because every person who has ever wounded you, every betrayer, every quiet manipulator, every charming face that turned cold the moment you became inconvenient, all of them, at the moment they hurt you, were running from something inside themselves. They projected it onto you, they acted it out through you, and you absorbed the damage of their unexamined interior. Because you were never taught that this is how human beings actually function beneath the surface. You were taught the opposite. You were taught that it is rude to analyze people, that it is cynical to question stated intentions, that the morally upright posture is to take everyone at their word, assume the best, and extend trust as a kind of spiritual generosity. This is the conditioning that has bled you dry. And here is the uncomfortable truth, that conditioning was never designed to protect you. It was designed to keep you readable, predictable, easy to navigate. A reliable resource for the people who learned the unspoken rules of human behavior while you were still memorizing the spoken ones. They were studying the shadow while you were studying the smile. And the gap between those two educations is the precise reason you have been blindsided again and again. But that gap closes today, because by the end of this, you will possess something almost no one around you has, the ability to read the subtext beneath every interaction. You will understand the exact mechanism of shadow projection, the unconscious leak Carl Jung identified that exposes a person's true intentions, no matter how carefully they curate their image. You will learn why their loudest complaint about others is almost always their deepest confession about themselves. You will understand why extreme virtue signaling is a confession in disguise. You will learn to watch the spaces between the words where the unconscious cannot help but write its own signature. And you will integrate the identity that has been waiting inside you all along, the awakening strategist, the one who sits quietly in the room, says little, watches everything, cannot be moved by performance, cannot be charmed past their own observation, cannot be fooled by stated values that do not match observed behavior. This is not paranoia. This is deep psychology, sharpened into a precision instrument of self-mastery. This is emotional intelligence, weaponized for your own protection, never to harm, always to see. If these ideas resonate with you, hit that subscribe button for more top-tier content. Also, drop a "I see" in the comments so I know you're ready. Let's dive in. Carl Jung spent his life mapping a region of the psyche almost no one wants to admit exists. He called it the shadow. The shadow is everything a person has refused to integrate about themselves, the envy they will not name, the ambition they call something else, the cruelty they have buried under politeness, The hunger for power they have disguised as service. The capacity for betrayal they insist belongs only to other people. Every human being carries this material. The difference between the integrated and the dangerous is not the absence of a shadow. It is the willingness to look at it. And here is the law that should change how you walk through every room for the rest of your life. The shadow does not stay buried. It cannot. The unconscious mind is older, deeper, and more powerful than the polite social mask layered over it. So it finds an exit, and the exit is always the same. The person projects the buried material onto someone else and condemns it there, loudly, repeatedly, with the intensity of someone trying to convince themselves first. This is why the colleague who endlessly accuses others of being manipulative is, almost without exception, the most calculating presence in the room. This is why the friend who constantly warns you about how untrustworthy everyone is broadcasting the architecture of their own interior. This is why the partner who interrogates your loyalty with suspicious intensity is often the one quietly rehearsing the betrayal in their own mind. Their loudest complaint is their deepest confession. Read that again, slowly. Their loudest complaint is their deepest confession. This is the single most important principle in Carl Jung's deep psychology, and once you absorb it, you will never hear another conversation the same way for the rest of your life. You will begin to notice that people are not describing the world around them when they accuse, condemn, or repeatedly fixate on a particular flaw in others. They are describing the interior of their own unexamined mind. They are confessing, they are leaking, and they are doing it in every interaction without ever realizing it, because the unconscious does not ask permission before it speaks. And this is the part that should make you sit very still. The person in front of you cannot stop this leak. They cannot suppress it through willpower. They cannot disguise it through charm. They cannot intellectualize their way out of it. The shadow finds its exit no matter how sophisticated the persona, which means every person you have ever met, every person you will ever meet, is at every moment handing you the blueprint of their hidden self, if you have trained the eyes to see it. The naive observer hears the words. The awakening strategist hears the accusation underneath the words and asks a different question entirely. What are they actually confessing right now? What are they revealing about themselves by what they cannot stop noticing in others? This single shift in how you listen will reshape your life, because suddenly the people around you become legible. Their patterns become visible, their hidden psychology becomes data, and you stop being the audience for the performance. You become the analyst, studying the script underneath it. But not every shadow leak is loud. Some are exquisitely quiet, wrapped in elegance, dressed in language so polished, it disarms your suspicion before suspicion has a chance to form. This is the overcompensation tell, and it is one of the most reliable signals in all of hidden psychology. When a person aggressively advertises a particular virtue, repeatedly, performatively, in moments where the situation does not call for it, that advertised virtue is almost always the exact location of their deepest shadow. The person who reminds you constantly how honest they are, the one who narrates their own integrity in every conversation, the one whose entire identity rests on being kind, generous, loyal, spiritual, principled, ethical, evolved. Pay attention, pay close attention. Genuine character does not need a marketing campaign. Real integrity does not require a press release every Tuesday. The performance is the tell. The volume is the confession. Carl Jung observed something brutal here. The more inflated the conscious persona, the more compressed and volatile the unconscious shadow becomes. A person who has truly integrated their honesty does not perform it. They simply behave honestly when they think no one is watching. A person who has truly cultivated kindness does not announce it. They simply extend it in moments that offer no audience and no reward. The performance is the compensation. The performance is the pressure valve releasing the strain of the lie. The performance is the door the unconscious is leaving open because it cannot tolerate the internal contradiction indefinitely. And once you learn to listen for this specific frequency, you stop being seduced by stated values. You start watching for the gap between the advertised self and the observed behavior, the gap between what they tell you they are and what they actually do when they think no one important is watching. That gap is where the truth always lives. That gap is where the shadow resides. The naive observer hears the polished words and feels reassured. The awakening strategist hears the same words and asks a colder question. Why does this person need me to believe this so badly? What is being defended through this volume? What is being hidden underneath the proclamation? Why this particular virtue, advertised this particular way, at this particular intensity? Because the answer to that question is, almost always, the precise shape of the shadow they are trying to outrun. This is shadow work applied outward. This is deep psychology turned into observational discipline. This is emotional intelligence sharpened into a quiet weapon of self-protection. And it does not make you cruel. It makes you accurate. There is a difference, and the conditioning you absorbed your entire life has tried to convince you there isn't. Reject that. Accuracy is not cruelty. Seeing clearly is not cynicism. Refusing to be deceived is not paranoia. It is psychological maturity. It is the first true act of self-respect you can extend to yourself. But the shadow does not only leak through words, it leaks through behavior, and specifically through behavior toward people who have nothing to offer. This is one of the most underestimated diagnostic tools in all of hidden psychology, and once you learn to use it, it will save you from years of misplaced trust. Watch how a person treats those they perceive as beneath them. The server who brought their coffee, the assistant who scheduled their meeting, the driver, the intern, the stranger on the street who needed directions, the cashier who made a small mistake. Because the persona, that carefully curated mask, is expensive to maintain. It requires energy. It requires attention. It requires an audience worth performing for. And the moment a person is in front of someone they consider strategically irrelevant, the mask slips. Not entirely. Just enough. Just for a flicker. Just for a tone. Just for a moment of contempt in the eyes. A flash of impatience in the voice. A small dismissal that they think no one important is registering. But you are registering. You are always registering now. Because that flicker is the most honest data you will ever collect about who this person actually is, when the performance becomes inconvenient. And here is the law you must engrave into your nervous system. If a person is gracious to you and contemptuous to those who cannot benefit them, you have just been shown your future. You are not the exception. You are simply the current investment. The day you stop being useful to their image, their ambition, their comfort, or their narrative, the version of them you witnessed treating others with quiet cruelty is the version you will inherit. Carl Jung's framework makes this brutally clear. The shadow does not discriminate between targets the way the conscious mind pretends it does. The same architecture runs through every interaction. The same interior expresses itself through every unguarded moment. The kindness they extend to you is conditional on your usefulness. The cruelty they extend to others is the truth of who they are when the conditions change. And the conditions always change. Eventually, for everyone. This is not pessimism. This is pattern recognition. This is observed reality. This is the data the universe has been quietly placing in front of you your entire life, while you were trained to look away from it in the name of being polite. Stop looking away. The micro-betrayal is your gold. The micro-betrayal is your earliest warning system. The micro-betrayal is the moment the shadow steps forward without permission and shows you exactly who you are dealing with. And the strategist who has trained themselves to notice these moments without commentary, without confrontation, without theatrics, becomes almost impossible to deceive at scale, because they are no longer reading the script being performed for them. They are reading the entire room. The way the person speaks to the people who cannot help them. The way the person handles small inconveniences. The way the person responds to mild disagreement. The way the person treats time, attention, and small commitments. All of it is data. All of it is signal. All of it is the shadow leaking through the architecture of the persona, exactly as Carl Jung predicted it would. But spotting the shadow is only the beginning, because there is a deeper law of observation that separates the casual student of deep psychology from the true strategist. And that is where we go next. The third law is this: information without restraint is wasted information. Most people, the moment they detect inconsistency in someone, react. They confront. They withdraw visibly. They signal their suspicion through tone, through facial expression, through the sudden coldness in their posture. And in doing so, they alert the person being observed that the mask has been seen, which causes the mask to become more sophisticated, more careful, more layered, more difficult to read going forward. The amateur announces their detection and forfeits their advantage. The awakening strategist does the opposite. The strategist sees and says nothing. The strategist registers the data and keeps the face neutral. The strategist allows the performance to continue because every additional minute of unguarded performance is another minute of free intelligence. This is where strategic thinking and hidden psychology converge into something almost no one in your life will ever learn. Once you have identified the shadow projection, once you have noticed the overcompensation, once you have observed the micro-betrayal, you do not announce your findings. You do not deliver a monologue. You do not confront. You simply adjust. Quietly, internally, without ceremony. You adjust the depth of information you share with this person. You adjust the access you grant them to your inner world. You adjust the emotional investment you make in the relationship. You adjust the future you allow them to occupy in your life. And the person never knows. They only notice, weeks or months later, that something has shifted and they cannot name what it is. They feel the temperature change, they feel the distance forming, but they cannot locate the source because the source is your observation, and your observation has stayed sealed inside you where it belongs. This is composed power. This is inner sovereignty. This is the precise moment you stop being the audience and start being the analyst. And the analyst keeps their notes private. And here is where you must confront the internal resistance, because it will come. The voice in your head will say, "This feels cold. This feels calculating. This feels like the kind of person you do not want to be." That voice was installed in you by every relationship that benefited from your unexamined trust. That voice was installed by a culture that profited from your readability. That voice is not your conscience. It is your conditioning. Real conscience does not demand that you remain naive. Real conscience does not require you to ignore evidence. Real conscience does not insist that observing people accurately is a moral failure. Quietly evaluating the patterns of those around you is not cynicism. It is the long overdue act of taking your own life seriously. It is the integration of the analyzer within you. The part that has always noticed the inconsistency, always picked up on the tone shift, always felt the small wrongness in the room, and always been overruled by the voice that told you to be more trusting. Stop overruling it. That analyzer is the most loyal protector you will ever have, and Carl Jung would tell you plainly that integrating it is not a betrayal of your goodness. It is the completion of your wholeness. The unintegrated self is the deceivable self. The integrated self, the one who has met its own shadow and stopped fearing the shadows of others, becomes almost impossible to manipulate. This is what self-mastery actually looks like. Not louder, not harder, quieter, sharper, more accurate, more awake. Before we close this, there is one final psychological test that consolidates everything you have learned. It is the test of small, low-stakes moments. Watch what a person does when they think nothing important is happening. Watch how they respond to minor inconvenience. Watch what they do when they are slightly tired, slightly stressed, slightly bored. Watch how they handle a small disagreement, a small delay, a small disappointment, a small loss of control. Because character is not revealed in the grand moments. Those are too easy to perform through. Anyone can be gracious at a wedding. Anyone can be composed during an interview. Anyone can be kind when there is an audience worth performing for. Character is revealed in the texture of the minor moments, the unguarded reactions, the small choices made when nothing seems to be at stake. And Carl Jung's understanding of the shadow tells us exactly why. The unconscious does not distinguish between large and small situations the way the conscious mind pretends to. The same architecture runs through every interaction. The same shadow leaks through every gesture, which means the small moments are not actually small. They are the purest signal you will ever receive, because they are the moments where the performance is least active and the truth is most exposed. The person who reveals contempt in small moments will reveal cruelty in large ones. The person who is casually dishonest about trivial things is rehearsing dishonesty about consequential ones. The person who breaks small commitments without notice, without explanation, without remorse, is showing you exactly how they will handle the larger commitments you have not yet made with them. The person who cannot regulate themselves through a minor frustration is showing you how they will regulate themselves through a major one. Once you accept this, the small moments become the most valuable surveillance you will ever conduct. Not paranoid, not anxious, just attentive, just awake, just alive to the data the universe has been generously providing you all along while you were busy looking the other way. And now, combine all four laws. The shadow confession, what they accuse others of is what they are. The virtue mask, what they advertise loudest is what they fear most about themselves. The micro-betrayal, how they treat those who cannot benefit them, is the truth of who they are. The silent observer. What you see, you record internally and adjust accordingly without announcement. Together, these four laws form a complete framework for reading the true intentions of anyone in any room. Not through psychic intuition, not through paranoid suspicion. Through trained, composed, disciplined observation rooted in Carl Jung, deep psychology, shadow work, and the kind of emotional intelligence almost no one in your generation was ever taught. You begin to move through the world differently. Conversations feel different, meetings feel different, social gatherings feel different, first dates feel different, job interviews feel different, family dinners feel different. You are no longer drowning in the surface noise of stated words. You are reading the deeper signal underneath them. You are watching the architecture beneath the architecture, and the people around you will sense this shift in you without being able to name it. They will feel that you have become harder to read, harder to deceive, harder to maneuver. Some will respect you more for it. Some will quietly remove themselves from your orbit. Both outcomes are gifts. The respect is earned, the removal is protective. And neither requires anything from you except the discipline of seeing clearly and acting on what you see. This is what self-mastery actually looks like when it matures into something real. It is not loud, it is not announced, it is not theatrical. It is a quiet, internal recalibration that makes you progressively unreachable by the manipulations that once defined your life. And the longer you practice it, the more your nervous system settles. Because for the first time, you are not relying on hope to navigate human relationships. You are not relying on the wish that people will turn out to be who they claim to be. You are relying on observation. You are relying on evidence. You are relying on Carl Jung's psychological law that the unconscious cannot keep a secret, that the shadow always leaks, that the truth of a person is always being broadcast through the cracks in their performance, and that you, finally, have learned to receive the signal. The person you were before this, the one who took words at face value, who trusted because trusting felt morally correct, who silenced the analyzer within you because noticing felt unkind. That person served their purpose. They survived as best they could with the tools they had. Honor them, thank them, but do not remain with them. Because the awakening strategist is not built through more pain. The awakening strategist is built through the disciplined integration of what the pain was always trying to teach you, that the world communicates on two channels simultaneously, and only one of them uses words. The other channel is constant, leaking, confessing, and it has been speaking to you your entire life while you were listening to the wrong one. From this moment forward, you listen differently, you watch differently, you evaluate differently. You give your access, your energy, your trust, your future, based on observed evidence, not stated claims, not advertised virtues, not the version of themselves people perform when they need something from you. You become quietly one of the very few people in any room who actually sees what is happening, and that single shift, that quiet, internal awakening, will reshape every relationship, every negotiation, every decision you make for the rest of your life. If you are ready to mark this transformation, drop the words "I see" in the comments below. Let it be your signature. Let it be the moment you publicly declare that the naive observer is gone and the awakening strategist has taken the seat. Subscribe, because this is the only space where Carl Jung, deep psychology, shadow work, hidden psychology, and inner sovereignty are explored not as therapy, but as a complete operating system for those who refuse to be deceived again. And whatever you do, don't stop now. The on-screen video matters more than you think. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. I'll see you there. See what others miss. Know what others fear. Become who others can't.